Bad guys come in all shapes and sizes, from the monstrously big-boned El Gigante to the pint-sized Warcraft gnome. Evil permeates every corner of the video game universe. No tale will be quite complete without them. I'm Foxtrot with Mobalytics, and here are 11 of the spiciest, coolest, memorablest bad guys in video game history. Kicking us off is Virgil from Devil May Cry. He certainly stands out as one of gaming's most stylish and memorable antagonists. As Dante's twin brother, he serves as the perfect foil, really. While Dante embraces his humanity and fights for the good of others, Virgil willingly taps into his demonic heritage. It's a bit cliche, but it's always cool when the big baddie is related to the good guys. Probably one of the most infamous pop culture moments of all time belongs to Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker. Apologies for the spoilers there, but I reckon 45 years, probably long enough. The Devil May Cry writers decided the twin brother thing wasn't enough family relation, so the secondary protagonist of the series, Nero, he's Virgil's son, certainly not going to win any Father of the Year awards after he rips off his son's arm for its power. They certainly do like keeping it in the family over there. I'm not even going to touch on Nero's relationship with his adoptive sister. Virgil comes in various human shapes and demon sizes. His human form V, you absolutely do not want to show to your book reading girlfriend if you want to keep her. None of his alter egos are quite as iconic as his original demon form from Devil May Cry 1, brought about from being tortured by the Prince of Darkness. Not a Black Sabbath thing, unfortunately, but Virgil is no doubt just as metal. Moving on, we got Gwyn, Lord of Cinder from Dark Souls 1. Dark Souls lore is hella complicated. It's not told through cutscenes and objectives or even any NPCs, who instead opt for communication through what can only be described as old-timey English riddles. No, instead Dark Souls lore is, interestingly, mostly told through descriptions attached to the items you find along your way. Even more obtusely, lots of these items are well hidden, all culminating in a very what the hell just happened feeling when the credits roll. Despite the murky waters that the Dark Souls story swims around in, it is undeniably an incredible tale well worth the reverence it receives from the gaming community. There's really no such thing as a black and white traditional villain in Dark Souls, but as far as memorable video game antagonists go, Gwyn the Lord of Cinder from the first one, absolutely up there. For all intents and purposes, Gwyn started off as a good guy, if again, such a thing really exists in that universe. The incredibly, very abridged version of his story is that he ended one age, brought in his own age, but then when it was time for his age to go, he refused to let it happen. He sacrificed himself to keep his age going, and at the time of Dark Souls 1, he's become essentially a zombie, a husk of his former self, and it's that shell you have to defeat to complete the game. He certainly has enough villainous qualities to count for this video. At the end of the day, his motivations are almost entirely selfish. He's definitely a supremacist. He built a bloody city just for him and his lords, seeing himself above all others. And when it was time to move on, he instead sought a way to prevent it by any means necessary, disturbing the natural order of the world with no concern for the condemnation that it would bring. He's not a villain in the traditional sense, I know, and from here on I'll keep the rest of the video more standard, but as a Dark Souls nerd and knowing what Gwyn set in motion with his selfishness, I wanted to chuck him in here. Now, if this video was a list of the most badass antagonists in video games, then Lu Bu would be much, much higher. As a kid playing Dynasty Warriors on the PS2, few things compared to the abject terror inflicted by meeting Lu Bu on the battlefield. Not only is he cranked up to the max as far as difficulty and stats go, he's also just so damn cool, it's impossible not to envy him. From his stylish regalia to his signature red hair that, if you get your hands on, was always the fastest horse in the game. If you could get the god of death off of his horse and away from it long enough to steal it, that is. What makes him a great villain is his mix of raw, indomitable strength with relentless cruelty. This man literally murdered his adoptive father, not once, but twice. For clarity, it was 2 different dads, right? The first one didn't come back to life or anything, but still 2 counts of patricide. It's impressive. Eventually, his penchant for betrayal would be his downfall, as none of the other warlords trusted him. And the really cool thing about Dynasty Warriors lore is that it's based on real people and historical events, albeit, heavily romanticized and exaggerated. If you read Lu Bu's Wikipedia entry, you'll see he's just one erratic, crazy, paranoid warmonger whose allegiances flip-flop more than a beach day boot. Certainly a cool read, and you can see why he was the perfect foundation for a perfect villain. Fighting games aren't exactly the canvas you'd expect for the brushstrokes of storytelling, but let me tell you about my man Shao Kahn from Mortal Kombat. There are a good few baddies in that series. Melina fit in that description in more ways than one. But considering the core story of the game is about one realm wanting to invade and subjugate another, the head honcho for those would-be conquerors is a pretty fitting choice for the main baddie. And I mean, he truly is the epitome of a villain too. In one of the realms he invaded, he killed the king, enslaved the king's daughter, raised her as his own personal assassin, and then forced the queen to marry him. Somehow that's not even the worst part of this story. When the queen had too much, was so overwhelmed with grief that she took her own life, he trapped her soul and resurrected her to carry out his evil bidding. That's seriously dark stuff, even for Mortal Kombat. But most importantly, I mean, just look at him. If that isn't one of the coolest designed characters in gaming, then I don't know what is. Shao Kahn is on the combine harvester of villain aura farming. Borderlands might be known for its chaotic tone and absurd humor, but it wouldn't work half as well without a genuinely great villain to anchor it, and Borderlands' best villain has to be Handsome Jack. You might think he's just another charismatic corporate tyrant, but what makes him so cool is the way he really redefines that role. He doesn't just want to rule Pandora, in the standard cliche way. He honestly believes he's the hero, and he treats you, the actual hero, like an insane criminal, ruining his flawless plan to bring order. He's insulting, he's arrogant, he's hilarious, and disturbingly relatable all at once. Except for his name. My name's not even Jack, and somehow that's the most relatable part of it. He's critically acclaimed as well, with voice actor Damien Clark winning a Best Performance award for Handsome Jack. Yeah, he's no doubt one of gaming's most stylishly hateful bad guys. We're first introduced to Resident Evil's Albert Wesker as the captain of the STARS unit, a special police-ish task force of the greatest brawns and brains to counter the greatest domestic threats of the time. Eventually, however, we learn that this good guy act is all a facade, and that he orchestrated some of the most egregious and evil biochemical research, including a healthy dose of testing on humans. His legendary status as a villain starts from the very first game, where he leads the STARS squad into a recent outbreak site conveniently located at a spooky gothic mansion, under the pretense of asserting what happened and reporting back. Unbeknownst to the other team members, he was behind the whole thing and actually wants to scrub the evidence, kill off all of the STARS, and collect some samples to sell on the black market. Capitalism Gone Wrong is the initial theme with Wesker, but eventually upgrades into a predictable dose of genocide and eugenics. Personally, I never really vibed with that whole humanity is a scourge and needs to be wiped out type of thing, but I guess when a character is featured in 14 of your game titles, yeah, I guess that character has to go through some kind of evolution. His boss fight in Resident Evil 5, which ultimately leads to his death, is as iconic as it is ridiculous. Juiced up on Resident Evil roids, he inherits superhuman powers. He survives an overdose, being shot in the head, falling from a helicopter, landing in lava, being infected with a demon virus, and he only eventually dies when 2 synchronized rockets blow him up. Wesker has become so iconic that he's even been voted multiple times as one of Capcom's greatest villains, and for good reason. Now we're creeping into our top 5, and when it comes to legendary villains, The Legend of Zelda has arguably the undisputed king of recurring evil, Ganon. It's not just that he's the final boss in the majority of Zelda games, it's more like what he represents. In a world built around courage and wisdom, traits that Link perfectly embodies, Ganon is the literal embodiment of power, reborn over and over again, specifically to conquer and to dominate. He's the antithesis of not only Link, but the world itself. Every time Link and Zelda finally defeat him, he just returns in another era with another new form and another new scheme to plunge Hyrule into darkness all over again. And it's not just he tries to do these things and is always foiled, he actually succeeds a lot. In Ocarina of Time, he reduces the kingdom to an apocalyptic wasteland for 7 straight years. In Wind Waker, he succeeds so badly, the gods flood the entire world just to stop him. Because he keeps being reborn, he keeps manifesting himself in different forms, and he just looks so cool in pretty much all of them. You know, whether it's the beast-like Ganon in a thunderstorm, or that calm, regal Ganondorf walking silently toward Link with his cape billowing behind him. Ganon almost supersedes being just a villain. He's Hyrule's eternal curse, and that in itself is very, very cool. I suppose puzzle games aren't usually where you'd go to find legendary villains, but Portal not only pulls it off, it does it in spectacular style with GLaDOS. She's one of the most brilliantly written antagonists in gaming history. You know, evil AIs are bountiful across science fiction, but truly none quite like the politely sadistic overlord of aperture science. GLaDOS forces you through a series of increasingly dangerous tests, all in the name of science, of course. But you know, there are nice ways to do science, and then there are GLaDOS ways to do science. Her voice lines are pure gold. You know, she congratulates you, she lies to you, gaslights you, mocks you, and even casually threatens to incinerate you, but somehow in a way that separates her from those you might meet on Tinder. And more so than many of the villains on this list, she absolutely owns the game she's in. You're the player, but you're playing on her terms. Every room, every puzzle, every rule, it's designed by her. When you finally begin to break free of the test chambers and see the hidden areas of Aperture, she immediately switches tone, right? From like this playful, sarcastic being to outright terrifying. And if that's not enough, let's not forget her backstory either. She literally murdered the entire Aperture staff with a neurotoxin within hours of being activated, and then spent years testing alone just for fun. She also brings us one of the more unique soundtrack entries in gaming. Definitely worth a listen to GLaDOS's Still Alive song if you fancy a chuckle. Time for our real heavy hitters now as we approach the top 3, and let's start with one I'm sure you'll be very familiar with. Warcraft has set the bar for fantasy universes in gaming. A lot of that comes from its lore and storytelling, and few storylines are as impactful and iconic as that of Arthur's Menethil, the Lich King. As the Lich King, he is the de facto leader and controller of all the undead on Azeroth. Countless are the victims of the undead, but it's not just his role as the Lich King that's iconic, it's the path he took to get there. Arthur started as a paladin, prince to the throne, a noble protector of his people, but his obsession with defeating the undead scourge slowly consumed him. He murders his own mentor, his own people, his own dad, the king. Eventually he abandons his kingdom and ultimately takes up Frostmourne, the cursed rune blade that steals the souls of all it kills, and by wielding it, Arthur's soul as well. The irony being that in his mad quest to defeat the undead, he becomes its greatest champion. In World of Warcraft, Arthur's influence only grows. He's the primary villain of the Wrath of the Lich King expansion, which is often considered the peak of WoW. Eventually, at the end of the expansion, players fight him in Icecrown Citadel, the raid itself again being considered one of the greatest of all times. His boss fight, one of the greatest of all times. And just to prove his epicness as a villain, the boss fight ends with him stunning all the players, essentially going, yes, that was fun, you guys are pretty strong, I think I'll make you mine. And nothing short of divine intervention actually stops that from happening. I mean, just look at him too, man. Frostmourne, one of the greatest weapons in video games. That jagged crown of domination, his black armor, his deep, imposing voice. Every inch of Arthur screams bad guy. Final Fantasy is a legendary game series characterized by gripping storylines, industry-defining turn-based combat, and most importantly, its unforgettable characters. Few are more memorable than Final Fantasy VII's primary villain, Sephiroth. There are roughly 1 million different entries in the Final Fantasy series, and the fact that Sephiroth only appears in one of them, not counting its spin-offs, just goes to show how epic he is. Sephiroth is Final Fantasy VII. To steal the limelight for one of gaming's most renowned protagonists in Cloud, certainly no easy feat. He first appears as a celebrated hero and then it all unravels. The once celebrity poster boy for the good guy massacres an entire village, burns it to the ground, and is responsible for one of the most infamous deaths in gaming. It's a story of tragedy, really, but no amount of childhood trauma and daddy issues can really justify such relentless slaughter. He spreads terror everywhere he goes and ultimately plans to cast the most destructive spell in existence to all but destroy Earth, to crack it open like a cosmic egg and slurp up the gooey yolk inside for its power. Why does he want to do that? To ascend to godhood, of course. His signature Masamune sword, his flowing silver hair, his black coat, make him one of the most instantly recognizable characters in gaming, not just villains. And his legacy, he's undoubtedly influenced countless character designs since. And for our most iconic, coolest villain in video games, it's going to be Vaas Montenegro from Far Cry 3. From the moment he's introduced, Vaas exudes an unhinged, psychotic energy that makes every encounter with him terrifyingly unpredictable. While the protagonist in the game, Jason Brody, can sometimes feel like a bit of a wet blanket, Vaas utterly steals the spotlight with his intense presence and his charismatic menace. It's not easy for a game to succeed with an utterly forgettable named main character, but Vaas fills these shoes and then some. One of the main reasons the character stands out so much is because of Michael Mando, the actor who portrayed him. During his casting audition for Vaas, he completely improvised everything. His performance was so impressive, so captivating, that the developers not only literally rewrote the character of Vaas, but even large parts of the entire game's story to match that chaotic personality that Mando brought to the role. Instead of a generic antagonist, Vaas became an unforgettable embodiment of madness and brutality. His definition of insanity speech is still quoted by fans today and has become an iconic pop culture moment. Far Cry 3 brought the Far Cry franchise into the mainstream. It sold more than double the copies of the first and second Far Cry games combined. And we all know Far Cry nowadays as a staple in gaming. And you have to wonder, without Vaas Montenegro, would we be sitting here saying the same thing? That does it for this video. What do you think? Do you agree with our choices? Is there anyone left out that you'd put in? Let us know in the comments. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you next time.